Hi, everybody. It's Mark from Northeast Bass Fishing, and I've got some video here of my recent trip to Lake Champlain. So it was really windy. The weather was not great, so a lot of the audio is not great. So I thought I would overdo the audio, and I put a bunch of clips from day one. I mean, actually, we arrived on a Saturday, so this is actually the full day of Sunday, some from different clips. It's probably about a half hour long, so I thought I'd redo this. So this is when we first started fishing, and I was fishing with my buddy Ken and me, and you'll see him every now and then on here. And we started out on this flat, and we just started throwing chatterbaits. The water was only 50, 51 on Sunday, and we started catching them. There's a decent smallie there. Now, there's better fish than that one, so it was just, we were happy to be there and started catching some fish. So through this area here, we launched at Dellenbach, and we were just kind of driving around, and there was this big flat, so we just started throwing some chatterbaits, some spinnerbaits, and later in the day, some moving baits, some like rattle traps and some square bills. So here's just some clips of some different fish from that first day. So that first smallie, small guy, 2 pounder. And I think if I remember right, I'm just watching these over again now. This is a pretty good largie that I caught here on the chatterbait. And this was all right in the very beginning. So, we're only fishing for 10 minutes and we've already got, 2 nice fish in the boat. And you don't see like the fish that Ken is catching behind me. So yeah, some of these with net, that's Ken there coming up with a net, and it was a pretty decent largemouth. 3 something, I forget exactly the weights of some of these fish, but nice chunk. So we're off to a good start. And we're just working up this flat, around North Hero Island there. Just throwing some chatterbaits around, some moving baits, spinner baits too. You can see we're pretty bundled up, so it was chilly. When we got there on Saturday, it rained pretty much every day at some point. Not all the times when we were fishing. So some of the days I didn't have the cameras out because it was raining out, and I don't want to mess up the cameras. So now I'm going in the opposite direction here with the chatterbait. I don't think I switched over to a spinnerbait yet. But, just working these weedy, flat areas. It's probably, we're probably sitting in 5 or 6 feet, thrown up to that shoreline there. And they were pretty stacked in this little corner here. And like I said, I don't remember exactly if these are like smallmouths or largemouths until I see the video again. This looks like, 2 1/4 smallie, maybe 2.5. You see me just throwing that chatterbait there, just jackhammer.
Maybe 3 pounds.
And you see that chartreuse trailer there on that. I like throwing grubs on my chatterbaits, and amazingly, I forgot to bring any grub trailers. So I was kind of living with whatever ones I had on there and on some various chatterbaits that I had, hopefully to get me through the week. So some of these clips are a little longer than others because I caught back-to-back fish, or it's a lot of minute and a half clips stuck together that I edited together tonight, and working on this overdub here. So obviously, if I didn't stop it, I'll probably gonna get another fish soon. Sometimes when you see me stop and walk to the back, it might be me grabbing the net for Kenny, because he's catching them too, right behind me. So we're both catching fish, left and right here on the chatterbait, which is a bait that's really good even when that water is like 50 degrees. And it's just one of my Abu Garcia Vendetta rods. I think that's a 7.3 medium heavy. One of my Ardent Grand bait casters. I think I've got 12 or 14 pound sunline on there. But I'm sure there's some other fish here coming up soon. You guys get the idea what that shoreline is like. Here's another fish here. Like I said, I don't remember exactly if these are largies or smallies. You'll see them when they come up out of the water. this is, you know, a half hour after we launched, so we're just thrilled to be there, catching fish early. These aren't, like I said, these aren't monsters yet. Another, you know, keeper largie there. This area seems to hold a lot of largemouth. Every time we're up there, it's a mix, but it seems more largies than smallies. If you move out deeper into that 7, 8, 9, 10 foot range, you seem to find more of the smallmouth. Yep, still working down this shoreline. Another fish coming up. So this was one of the best of the week as far as numbers go. You know, even though every fish isn't going to be on this, you know, on the video. Another decent largie. And that chatterbait bite is really cool. How they just load up on it.
Another largie, 2.5 pounder.
And as I said, you know, you're not seeing it, but Kenny is catching fish behind me too. So we're having a great day to start here. And it wasn't raining at this point. It wasn't raining, which was hard to say the week we were there. You know, but the fishing was good, even though the weather was terrible. Probably Wednesday was the day that the weather was the worst. I don't think I did any filming that day. It was rain on and off all day, heavy wind. I don't think I set the camera up at all. Another largie back to back. So you guys get the idea. It was just like fish after fish after fish. So this is a fairly, you know, extended clip here, you know, of these largies that we were catching. But we'll go back to this spot later on in the day. Oh, we're still going to fish it more. I thought this was the end of the clips of this section, but we're still catching them. So we fish down this shoreline a lot. Sometimes it's really good, you know, like anywhere else, and sometimes it's a little, you know, you seem to find them, you know, especially it seems like this time of year, you find them kind of bunched up. If you find an area, you know, we did that a lot this week up on Champlain. A lot of, you know, moving around. You know, if you go to one point or one area, you know, and not catch any, you just move to another one till you found them where they were biting, and they usually were ganged up pretty good. You know, and you know, every section of the lake, it's so big, it's like a different lake. In some places, there's a smallie mixed in with all those largies. You know, you find these areas where the fish are ganged up, and you think it's going to be like that everywhere, or it's just going to continue, but then all of a sudden it'll just shut down, and you got to move and go somewhere else and find them. So you just got to really, you know, a big place like Champlain like that, just, you know, if you're not catching fish in one spot, don't be afraid to move around, try another point, a different shoreline, and then you might run into them again. Another largie. Moving down that shoreline. I don't know if you guys know North Hero Island. Excuse me. There's these houses on the. I guess this would be you consider this the west side of the island. But this whole area it's a place we always like to hit. Always seems to hold fish. That's a pretty decent smallie there. Getting a little better. And then we moved out, and you can see how rough it is. This is when we really started to catch some big fish. And right there I've got the Binsky blade bait on, just chucking it out, about 20 feet of water. And this was like my first cast into the area. And I hook up with a pretty good smallie. This is when we really get some smallies that have some good size to them. And that's the black and blue Binsky. So for you guys who like blade baiting, the silver buddy, the Binsky, you know, whatever you like to throw, it can be a good bait early in the season when the fish are holding on the bottom. And sometimes it's a great way to catch them. You know, sometimes there's better ways to catch them. But on this day, that was really a good bait for us as far as size goes, which you guys will see here in a second. And this is where you'll see Kenny a lot because we caught some bigger fish, so we were netting them. This is when we were starting to get into those 3, 4, and you'll see 5-pound smallmouth, you know, on that blade bait. This is when we first get into a spot, and we think it's going to be, we had tried this in another area, and it wasn't panning out. So we went to another spot that some of our buddies had fished and said was doing pretty well, so we figured we'd try it out. You see that black Binsky there? It's a nice smallie. So a lot of times you see me standing like that, Kenny's taking a picture of it. It's that black Binsky. It's a nice 3+ pound smallie. You know, we didn't weigh all the fish, you know, but we did weigh, you know, just to get an idea of what we're looking at here. We did weigh some of them, so when you see me standing there like that, that's when we're just, you know, throwing it on the scale and checking it out. And I don't remember the exact weight on all these fish, really. But you guys can see that they're pretty good smallmouth. And I like to throw the blade bait. That's another Vendetta rod, medium heavy. That's a grand spinning bait casting reel. Got like a 14 pound, 12 pound fluoro on there. A lot of the guys like to use spinning setups for that. I prefer the bait caster with a lefty retrieve reel. Tried it with the righty, and I like the lefty better. So there's that Binsky. I just figured I'd leave that, let it show for you. So we're just kind of moving around this area by some of the riprap. And Kenny caught a nice, and the reason I left this clip in, Kenny caught a nice smallie, and it spit that perch out on the deck. So we knew that there was perch around there. We knew there were bass around there, smallies around there, and we really started to catch them pretty well. And here's another good one I catch. You know, at one point here, I don't know if it's this point or another point, where I, you know, catch back-to-back like 4 pound fish. This one is definitely not in that 4 pound range. But a nice fish. You know, there's all different sizes out there. You catch a lot of perch out there too when you're doing this blade baiting. That's a gold blade bait there. I don't remember if that was the Binsky or another one we were using. Whatever blade bait you guys like to use, you know, it can be good this time of year. You know, early in the season, the fish are pinned. But a lot of times I was just bombing the casts out there. And we were sitting, like I said, 20, 25 feet, bombing the cast out there and just working that blade bait back to the boat, just popping it along the bottom. And sometimes you'd find the sweet spot where all the smallies were really feeding heavy. And a lot of it that week turned out, as far as the blade bait bite went, there were days like this day, on Sunday, when it was great. It was probably the best technique we used, better than the jerk bait, better than anything else. And there were other days when it wasn't producing much of anything. You know, a lot of it depended on the wind, on the current, where those perch were set up, how the fish were feeding, whether they were feeding, you know, a little more up in the zone, or whether they're feeding on the bottom. As you can see, I'm just bombing that cast out and working that blade bait back to the boat. And it's really, you know, you do get hung up a lot. You know, this area we didn't really get hung up too much. This area, the bottom's pretty clean. There was other areas we did it where you'd literally almost get hung up on every cast. So I'm just working it on the bottom back to the boat. Like I said, 20, 25 feet. Just popping it up and down, popping it up and down, popping it up and down. Based on the way the rod looks there, I would say that there's probably somebody on there. This might have been one of the clips where I kind of let it run a little bit because I caught back-to-back fish. Now, I couldn't always depend on them coming to the side, the camera side, so you just see them to the side of me, but you'll see the fish, and Kenny's over there scooping them up with the net. And this is when we start to really get into some nice-sized fish. If I can get them out of the net. When you get the Binsky stuck in the net, so there's a nice chunky smallie. Some of these 4-pounders we were starting to catch. And you can see me on Sunday, the first day, I'm just taking a picture there, flipping all these fish. By the end of the week, I had my thumbs, you'll see in some of the later videos, my thumbs are all taped up because they were just, I had the worst bass thumb I think I've ever had in my life. And just throwing in the cold weather, your hands being cold and wet, and catching so many fish, they were just shot. I mean, I hate wearing gloves, you know, those fishing gloves when I fish. But next year I may actually have to give in and wear them, just so my hands aren't so beat up by the end of the week. But getting these fish out of the net can be takes a little bit of time. So I don't want to pause the video or edit too much of it out. Just let it run. just get an idea what these conditions were like. And there's a fish, nice smallie. Nice smallie. There's a chunky 4-pounder. I think in this clip here, this is an extended clip where I catch him back to back. But like I said, the fish didn't always cooperate. Come to the boat on the side of the where the camera was set up, and I didn't keep moving it around every 2 seconds. See the fish jump up there. This is when we really started to get into them, and it seemed like the worse that wind got, and the more choppy it got, the better the fishing was. Which you wouldn't think, but it did seem that they didn't mind that the weather was lousy. I guess you could say the weather was stable. I guess stable bad weather is still good stable weather for bass fishing. Excuse me. I need a cough button for this overdub. But I guess getting these fish out of the net could be a bit of a show you these bass. Another nice chunk. So you can imagine we're a couple hours into the trip and we're having a good time. Catching some a lot of fish, catching some numbers, catching some big fish. And we're on Lake Champlain in May. Actually, it wasn't quite May yet. It was Sunday, so it was still April. And we did, when you're there, you wish the weather was a little better. But you can see that nice fish. They're just beautiful smallies there. The numbers of 3.5, 4.5 pound smallies with that occasional 5 thrown in up on Champlain it's just great. I don't know where else you can do it. I guess you could go to Thousand Islands and maybe catch a 6 or 7, but for the numbers of that size, can't beat it. I need a drink. I forgot about this overdubbing, doing it for these longer videos. I'm gonna need a drink. Maybe I should do them in sections, but I didn't really want to. Look at it as a live feed. Well, here we are, just out here casting that blade bait out. Casting the blade bait out, popping it along the bottom. Nice and easy. And you can feel the vibration from those blade baits. If you lose that vibration, you got something on there. A lot of zebra mussels we're catching. You catch a lot of old line, and after a while you realize you pretty much know what it is before you even see what it is. Now here I just switched the camera. This is Kenny, and the sound wasn't great, so I kind of overdubbed it. I'm going to overdub it here. You can see our buddies. I think, if I remember right, that's our buddies on the other side of the bridge there fishing. But this was like a 5.5, 5.48 or something like this. I think it might have turned out it was the biggest fish of any of our group of 6 guys caught for the week. So I figured I'd get you guys a good shot of that big fat smallie. That was one of that might have been the biggest fish of the week. I don't remember if that was one or a different one, but I know it was a 5-something. Lots of 4s. I don't know if there was a day, excuse me, that I didn't catch a 4-pounder. I think there was one day when I caught like a 3.11. So I think when you can go somewhere and for 6 straight days catch a 4-pound plus smallie or a largie, that's pretty darn good. This here might be this. I don't know if this is another 4-pounder. I don't remember. But it's another good fish. Whenever we would use the net, they're usually pretty good fish. If you get something in that little less than 3, where you're pretty much swinging them in. These are all pretty good ones. This might be, I don't know if this was the end of our blade bait bite or it was still going on. I'll see as the film goes on here. But you can see another, great looking fish. And as I said, I don't remember the exact weights of these fish. They were all 3.5, 4-pound fish. Other than Kenny's 5-pounder you saw there. But probably just weighing him here. Whatever always see me standing, see me kind of off camera like that. Either I'm scooping up a fish for him, or we're just weighing them, and then I grab him back and try to give you a good shot of him on the video. So you see the Tacticam iCam really does, it makes nice video.
31.5 pounds.
Once again, getting that Binsky or blade bait, which one I'm using, out of the net. Of course, with your jerk baits, it's probably worse because you've got 6 treble hooks. But getting everything out of the net sometimes takes a little while. And that wind was on that Sunday was pretty much constant the entire time we were out there. But I finally got my bait free. So it's just this is a little extended clip here. So I usually when the clips are extended like this, I probably got another fish right away on like the next cast. Either that or it's really poor editing on my part. But I think I took like an 8-hour day or 9-hour day of video and chiseled it down to about 30 minutes, which is not bad. So if me getting the Binskys out of the net is boring, you guys can always fast forward that to the fish catches. And you can see I'm making long casts with that blade bait. And like at one point, I think after catching 2 big ones in a row, my forearm was like cramping up, just doing that the blade bait, working the blade bait and catching those big fish. My right arm was worn out on day 1. Yep, there's another one right there. That was 2 really nice fish back to back casts. They were just really, that day was just, they were just loaded up there. There was one other day we went and I caught 3 nice ones there, but I think that it was raining that day, so I didn't have the camera out. We got pictures of them. I'm going to wind up eventually. Yeah, you see my right arm there. It's pretty. My right forearm is shot at this point. And here it is Sunday of the second day of the trip. This is another nice one back to back here. That's why I let this video run.
Ridiculous.
I think I've got like 5 layers on. It was chilly. At that point, like I said, it wasn't raining, so that was nice because we saw plenty of rain. I think this night, though, it rained like all night. I think we might have got lucky and didn't get rained on too much, but you see that's another beautiful smallie. They don't have a mark on them. All nice and fat, feeding up on those perch down there. So these are, like I said, these are all pre-spawn, fish. It's early May. Actually, at this point, it's not even May yet. It's still late April. But if you can handle the weather, you can catch some beautiful fish. I know probably in my fishing life, the biggest fish I've caught have been in the lousiest weather. There's exceptions to that, but some of the biggest fish are when that weather is just awful. And this weather is not awful. It's not pleasant out there. It was cold, but it wasn't bad. When you're catching fish like that, you don't really care. You kind of forget what the weather's like.
Almost 4, 315, 3 pounds, 15 ounce smallie on the blade
With the
bait.
wind blowing, you didn't hear anything I said at any point. So that's why I'm, overdubbing all this, going through it, watching it again. And
32.2.
you go there for a week and the time just flies by. So now we're in another section here. This is going to be the end. I think this is the end of us blade baiting. I'm not sure. Let me see where we go to. I think this is later in the day. Yeah. It's later in the day. I got the camera going again. And we didn't really catch a lot of fish on jerkbaits that first day. Usually the jerkbait is the way to go. So we were out on that flat again, and I started throwing a rattle trap. And I did throw a square bill too, which I did well on, but I don't think it was this day. I think I pretty much threw the rattle trap and the spinner bait, if I remember right. I'll have to see what baits are here, when we see the fish caught. But I think it was pretty much mostly the rattle trap. And I was just throwing that Spro rattle trap that I like. And I was kind of throwing like a perch type color, bluegill type color. I don't remember the exact. If we get a good look at it here, I'm not sure. What they call that color, but decent small. Not like those blade bait ones. Yeah, that's just a rattle trap there. Get a better look at it. It's kind of like that perch pattern.
He's got one around the same size.
Trying to match what it seemed like, when we weren't catching bass. It was pretty much perch. We did, one of the guys did, we did catch a couple walleye throughout the week. My buddy Ken actually caught a little salmon, some white perch, but, decent smallie. This was later in the day and we're heading back. We're going to pull out soon.
Double of the week.
We've already been fishing all day, getting hungry. And we just come out to this flat, just start. Ken is catching them on a jerk bait, rattle, and I think he's throwing a jerk bait and the chatterbait again. And I wanted to try some other stuff, so I'm chucking the rattle trap out. The wind is not as bad at this point. You can tell it's a little calmer. And there's that area again that we fished in the beginning. We're going to hit it again before we head in. And here we might have started catching some on a spinnerbait. I don't remember if it was the spinnerbait or the...
That's a good call.
Actually, I think we're at the... No, you know what? Now, I think I'm wrong. We're actually at the point of North Hero Island there. So I think that's the park there. So we're sitting there chucking some baits. And this is when Kenny catches another monster. 4-pluser on, I think, a jerkbait. So I showed you guys a video of that. So you can see it was a pretty darn good day for all of us. Here's my last fish on a spinnerbait, but it was on the opposite side of the boat with the camera. So I don't know remember, this might be the last fish of the day. We were out on that point, finally got a good bite on a spinnerbait. Whack, yeah, hit it right by the boat. But I think this might be the last clip that I recorded. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was the first Sunday that we were there. We did get there on Saturday, fished for a couple hours, caught a few, but it was raining. We didn't stay out for very long. Went back to the house and had dinner. So, this is the day one. I think I've got 3 or 4 other days that I'm going to combine with clips. I have one other day that I ran that video all day when it wasn't raining. But trying to get this fish off the spinnerbait. Took forever. He had the trailer hook through his mouth and out, and the main hook too. So he definitely wasn't getting off because he kind of short striked it right by the boat. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Any questions about anything? It's such a great fishery, Lake Champlain. I'm so blessed to be live near there. It's only a couple hours away to go up and fish such a great fishery, and the lake is huge, and we fished a very small area, compared to how big it is. So, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys soon. That's the last fish of the day that I caught before we turn the camera off and head back to the house. So I'll see you guys soon. Marg out.